What's up, guys? RyHo here, coming at you again from down in the movie room with another edition of Horror Show, where I'm going to talk some horror movies with you guys. And this week I decided that I had to watch a creature feature, and I'll explain that at the end of the video, but I knew I had to watch a creature feature, so I was kind of going through different lists on the web, just try to find something different to watch, something that I either hadn't watched in a long time or maybe something I hadn't seen altogether. And I mean, there's tons of creature features to pick from, but I was kind of going through like top 25 lists, things like that. And of course I've seen just about everything in all these lists, but there were a couple of movies that kind of kept jumping out at me, and one of them in particular was C.H.U.D. I've seen C.H.U.D. It was a very long time ago. I wasn't totally sure that I had seen C.H.U.D. or I'd seen C.H.U.D. 2, because it had been such a long time. And I had very sparse memories of like the creatures in it and stuff like that. But after having watched it, I did remember that I'd seen this movie probably way back in the 90s, but it had been a very long time. I think I watched it on VHS back then. And so it was kind of like a fresh experience seeing this movie again for the first time in a very long time. But to give you a little bit of background, C.H.U.D. is a movie set in New York City in the mid to early 80s. I think it came out in 84. And the idea behind it is that there are all these homeless people that are disappearing in the city, and regular people too. And it's kind of being covered up. You have a police officer who's kind of in the midst of all of it. He wants to solve the crimes, but he's being told to shut up. You have a photographer who is taking pictures of the homeless people, sort of like an art project of some sort. And he of course is involved with it that way. And then you have another character who is he runs a soup kitchen, so he's directly involved with seeing these people every day, and it's sort of like how their stories intertwine, I guess. The movie is kind of acts a little too big for its britches. It has this whole overarching layered tale sort of corporate greed and like environmental issues, which, you know, not only are they hot button topics today, but they definitely were back then. And I think there must have been some kind of a thing in the 80s and 90s where people were thinking that toxic waste was being dumped in the sewers of New York or something like that, because it's come up in a couple of different movies. But that's sort of the idea here, is that something's going on, and it seems like there's some kind of creatures that are in the sewers, and the whole mystery to it is, why are they there, how did they get there, and what are they doing, that sort of thing. And those things are the C.H.U.Ds, which are the creatures in this movie. It stars John Hurd from Home Alone fame. He was Peter McAllister in that movie. It also stars Daniel Stern, oddly enough, who was one of the wet bandits, I think, in the first movie. They were the sticky bandits in the second movie. Why his name is Marv, I think his name was. Which is kind of funny that those two guys were in this movie together as well. And then there's actually Christopher Curry is in the movie, and he plays the detective in it. I recognize him instantly from Starship Troopers. He plays Rico's dad in Starship Troopers. I remember, I'll never forget that line when he's really excited about getting him to go down to Zegama Beach. But I would put the clip in of that, but I would probably get flagged on YouTube or something like that, so I'm not doing it. But anyway, actually, oddly enough, he appears in Home Alone 3, which is just hysterical to me. All three of those guys ended up in a Home Alone movie, not together maybe, but in separate movies. And the other main actors in it, I would say, is Kim Greist, who plays John Hurd's wife in the movie. And I recognize her from, I'm sure she's in Manhunter, which is the Peter Mann version of Red Dragon, which I did a video about a long time ago, which was also in the 80s. It would have been around the same time as this. And I'm pretty sure I recognize it from an episode of X-Files, but I cannot pinpoint it for which one it is, but I'm pretty sure I recognize her for that too. And they all do a good job. They all do a great job in the movie, I think. Their characters are a little wacky, so it's kind of hard to tell. They all have very, I would say, strong, boisterous characters. They're very opinionated, and they're all a little loopy, but it's not really, it's the story is a little hard to take sometimes. You have a photographer who, I guess he's thrown it all away. He was a fashion photographer, and now he's just doing art stuff, and he'll just walk off set in 2 seconds. You have a cop that's kind of flying off the handle. We find out why later in the film, but he's kind of railing against his boss. And you have this guy that runs a soup kitchen, who is completely off his rocker. It's an interesting mix, I guess, but I don't know. Sometimes I feel like you're watching this movie and you're really watching it for the creature feature. You're watching it for the C.H.U.Ds. You're watching it for the monsters. and they take a real back seat to this stuff in the movie. Build up wise, it's pretty good. There's a couple of good scares. You just get a glimpse of the monsters here and there, which is standard for any kinds of these movies. And as the story builds up, you start to find out more about what's going on, and there's sort of a bad guy introduced. But I feel like that's the problem with the movie, is that it kind of goes that way. It really focuses on, the climax of the movie, which you would expect to be all about these guys fighting C.H.U.Ds and things like that, it really kind of focuses on them going after this guy who's trying to cover up some different misdealings he's had in his past, and there's a whole thing to go with that, and I won't ruin that for anyone in the movie, but I just feel like it focuses too much on that, when really, you're there to watch a stupid monster movie. That's what you're there to watch. And this movie is trying to be it's just trying to be something that, I don't know what it's, I guess maybe it's trying to shift the focus and be like, here's the real monster. I don't know what they're going for with that, but you really want to see the C.H.U.Ds at the end. There's one good C.H.U.D fight, and it is pretty good. There's some good misdirection in there. It's filmed pretty well. It's a pretty cool little section of the movie. But you have this whole thing at the end with John Hurt's character and Daniel Stern's character, and you expect more of that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I don't want to spoil the movie at all, but you expect more out of it and you don't get it. I would say the climax is a pretty big letdown, and the end of the movie is a pretty big letdown. As far as the special effects and stuff go, they were really awesome. I thought the C.H.U.Ds looked great. A lot of people think they look hokey. I thought they looked pretty creepy with their glowing eyes. I thought the masks were really cool, and you don't really get a good look at them, which is probably a good idea. They don't focus on them for very long, which is, again, it's you don't want to focus too much, and then people find imperfections and see how hokey they look or something like that. But so I guess that's a good filming technique there. But there's also scenes with really great gore effects in them, and they kind of do the same thing. They don't really focus on them very long. There's some shaky cam, or things are hazy when it's focused on it. Whoever did the special effects for the movie, they did a great job, and it's too bad that it doesn't get focused on enough. I watched the movie on Netflix, like I said before. The version on Netflix, I think, is the Anchor Bay release. This movie has a couple of different versions, I think. I definitely watched the VHS cut many years ago, but I don't remember the differences that much. But I guess the original version of the film, the theatrical version, ended differently than this one. It ended with the diner scene, that's all I'll say, which stars John Goodman, which is pretty cool. But in this version, they splice that in a little bit differently, so it ends differently. Basically what they tried to do with the theatrical cut was they tried to add some sequel bait, basically, at the end of it. They wanted to try to spin the movie into a series, I guess, and so they kind of cut it a little bit differently so it looked like there could be sequels. Whereas in this cut, which I would say is the better cut, they tied that up a little bit better, and they added some scenes into this one that flesh out the story a little bit better and the characters a little bit better, and I think it's probably the best cut that you can get. So I'm assuming if you were to buy the Anchor Bay DVD, this is the version you would see, I think it was in Super HD, so I might have watched an HD cut of it. It was kind of grainy. I think it was a low budget film when it was made, so I don't think you're going to get a lot of high quality out of it. It was probably just as good as DVD, but it was pretty good. And I guess my final opinion on it is that I thought the creatures looked great. I thought the special effects looked great. I think the acting was okay, but I think the story was just a little too all over the place, and it didn't focus enough on the monsters. When you got a monster movie, just focus on the monsters. Don't make it too much about everything else. In the end, I kind of found it lacking, but I did enjoy myself. I can't take away from that. I did enjoy watching the movie. It's very nostalgic for some reason. The music, the setting, it totally hits that 80s vibe that sometimes, that's what you're looking for when you watch some of these movies. Sometimes it's not always about them being a horror movie. It might just be that you just kind of want to sit back and enjoy something from your past. And it feels like any movie that I would have watched back then. Hell, if I saw it a lot back then, I probably think this movie was awesome. I think it's just that I'm looking at it from a different lens, having only seen it maybe once back in the 90s, and here I am now watching it again. So I would recommend definitely giving it a watch on Netflix. I think it's like an hour and 40 minutes. You can't go wrong giving it a watch. Most people have seen C.H.U.D anyway. I'm kind of wasting my time saying it, but if you haven't seen it, I would definitely say give it a watch that way. I wouldn't say run out and buy it. Maybe if you can find it for cheap, that's, that's no big deal. But I would say it's one of those movies that you all have to give it a watch and decide what you think about it. I have to say, at the end of the day, I did have fun watching it. I mean, I'm kind of over scrutinizing a stupid movie about, you know, cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. But I just couldn't, the whole time I was watching, as much as I was enjoying it, I was thinking, like, what are these people doing? Why are they doing this? And then just was pretty let down by the ending. So, again, give it a watch on Netflix if you have a Netflix service. The reason why I wanted to watch a creature feature so badly this week is because this week at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Sausage Factory is getting together once again, and we're talking creature features. So I think it's gonna be a really good episode. We've got some real aficionados for the topic, and we've got B Movie Mike and DVD Collector 1974. I know they're really big creature feature fans, and everyone that's involved with the show. Everyone loves creature feature movies, so I think it's gonna be a really good chat. I think you guys should definitely check it out, and you should check out all of our old ones too. You know, every show we've ever done is archived on the channel. YouTube.com/One The Sausage Factory. All the links and stuff like that are in the description, so you can easily get to them from here. And I should check out our stuff and maybe subscribe over there too, and check out the show live. So don't forget about that this week. We're going to be talking creature features. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys, and I'm hoping to have another one up very soon. So I'll talk to you later, and peace.